The last Friday of June, it was the last Shabbat before I moved here to Austin from New York. There were about 200 people who were gathered together in the sanctuary at Temple Beth Shalom. Yes, I come from a Temple Beth Shalom in New City, New York, where I had served for 13 years. They were there to say goodbye to me. And as I looked out at congregants, much like I'm looking out at you right now, as I looked out, I was overtaken with emotion. Here were people whose kids had grown up with mine, whose parents' funerals and spouses' funerals I had officiated, people who meant the world to me. And as I looked at their faces, I saw they were devastated, and frankly, so was I. And so when I gave my final sermon as their rabbi, I turned into a blobbering mess. I started to cry. The whole experience felt eerily similar to conducting my own funeral. Everything about that moment felt like an ending. And in many ways it was. It was the end of a chapter that had defined my adult life, my identity, my family's rhythm, my place in the world. I want you to know something. I was incredibly comfortable in New York. I had a really good staff. I had deep and meaningful relationships with congregants. I had strong support in the broader community. And yes, I had great bagels and great delis. Yes, Austin friends in New York, I had delis in the plural. In so many respects, I was profoundly comfortable. But one day, right in the middle of High Holy Days last year, I walked into my office, I sat down at my desk, I looked around the room, and I said to myself, something doesn't feel right. I'm too comfortable. And that realization, it landed with particular force, especially because it was the season of the Yamim Norim, the High Holy Days. And these days are all about stepping out of our comfort zones. You know, this morning is Rosh Hashanah. It's the anniversary of the creation of the world. We call it Hayom Harat HaOlam. Today, the world is literally being born in front of our eyes. Now, let me say, before I get into too much trouble, I want to admit to all of you right here with my wife sitting in the second row, I am not the greatest spokesperson to speak about the discomfort surrounding birth. I have been near someone who's experienced this discomfort. Twice, in fact. She's sitting right here with one of the children that caused the discomfort. And I know I want to be careful. I did try to alleviate her pain, and yes, when she was in labor with Caleb, I might have left the apartment to go get a sandwich. But I know, based on what I saw, that birth is not easy, it's not calm, it's certainly not comfortable. And in the Hebrew Bible, that's the point of creation, right? When the world is created, it's described as being tohu vavohu. In Israel, kids used to say, kids who had their rooms that were messy, their mothers would come in and they would say, your room is tohu vavohu, which basically means it's blech. It's a mess, right? Unformed. This is how the world's described when God comes to the scene. And so we're taught that creation is the world coming out of chaos. And the rabbis of the Midrash even go further. They say that when God created this world, it was the last of many different trial and errors. This was the final world. So even for God, creation was not effortless. It required disruption. Creation always requires disruption. Anytime that something is created, something has to shift. And that shift is uncomfortable. And if you think about it today, in our lives, we spend so much time trying to avoid this kind of discomfort. And in a sense, we are suppressing creation. By so drastically reducing unease, we're also reducing our growth. There's an author named Michael Easter who wrote a book called The Comfort Crisis. And he writes, we are living progressively sheltered, sterile, temperature-controlled, overfed, under-challenged, safety-netted lives. It's true. When a room is too warm, especially here in Texas, we reach for the thermostat. When we're hungry, food arrives at our door with a few taps on our phone. Our kids order like a pancake, and it shows up and it's like $70. Proof that we don't like to be uncomfortable. Raise your hand right now if you've ever, and don't lie, if you have ever decided not to talk to somebody face to face or even by phone and you've texted them instead because the conversation's uncomfortable. Thank you. And the ones who aren't raising their hand, you are definitely lying in so many ways. We've engineered our lives to strip out friction. Anything that might feel inconvenient, difficult, uncomfortable, it's now erasable. One of my favorite books, everyone should read it this year, over the last few years, has been Jonathan Haidt's The Anxious Generation. In this book, Haidt points out that the challenges that face our children today are often because we are so busy trying to overprotect them. He writes, children grow strong and resilient, not when they're protected from every risk, but when they're given the freedom to face manageable challenges and to learn from failure. Discomfort. That's how kids create themselves. Scraped knees, playground arguments, moments of being left out. That's how kids learn courage and creativity and identity. When I was a kid, there was this great place that I used to go. It was called outside. Yeah. I can't go there in Texas, I hear. Yes. I would tell my mother, I would be like, Mom, I'm going outside. And she'd be like, and then I would go and it'd be gone for hours. She had no clue where I was. Outside was where we wandered. It was where we rode bikes. It's where we played until the streetlights came on. It's where we got scraped. It's where we got in fights. It was outside where I hid in my friend Joel's backyard for 2.5 hours where Matt Leonetti was trying to beat us up. He was our town bully. That was an important experience. Discomfort wasn't an interruption to our childhood. It was how we became who we are today. And so these high holy days, they come here. And they tell us that becoming our fullest selves is not smooth, it's not easy. The holidays begin with Max's incredible shofar blowing. Why? Not to make us comforted, but to jar us, to remind us to wake up. And the same is true of all the rituals of these days. We fast on Yom Kippur because we're supposed to feel the pain of hunger. We recite the confessional because we're supposed to feel the pain of facing our wrongs. We say the Unatana Tokef because we're supposed to face the fearful fact that all of us are going to die. None of this is easy. None of this is comfortable. And so, friends, that's why, right after High Holy Days last year, sitting in my office and realizing I felt too comfortable. I wasn't growing. I was sort of stuck. And so I went home. I spoke to Shara, and we both decided it was time for me to start looking for new jobs. The next day, I went incognito. I put a ball cap on. I didn't put a fake mustache, but I should have. I went to the Panera on the other side of the town, away from the synagogue, and I sat there on my computer looking at the listings of what congregations were open. One stood out. Congregation Beth Israel. Not in Long Island. Austin, Texas. Now listen, I gotta be honest. 12 weeks in, this has not been one of the most comfortable decisions I've ever made in my life. In fact, as I stand here on this Rosh Hashanah morning, let me admit to all of you, I am profoundly uncomfortable. I'm living by myself in a city I don't know. I'm living here without my family. The roads here make absolutely no sense. I once drove up a road and I had 7 choices of how to turn left. finally, I'm very hot. I mean, I've been to Disney World in August, and that's nothing compared to this place. And let me tell you, even though this is hard, and it is hard, I also know that I'm modeling something for my kids. I'm reminding them that it's okay for things not always to be easy. It's okay to experience some discomfort. The best things in life are all about leaning into what makes us uneasy, because that's where we grow. And you know what? That willingness to lean into discomfort, that's what I saw in you. This is a community that has leaned into feeling uneasy. After the attack on our sanctuary, you didn't shrink away, you faced it. You held meetings, you confronted the pain, you considered what to do. You turned this social hall into a sanctuary, creating sacred space out of disruption. You said goodbye to a rabbi who had been here for over 30 years and who I know so many of you loved. And you said hello to me. You began the hard conversations about a capital campaign, knowing that it's going to stretch us and challenge us and require incredible courage. Again and again, you've chosen discomfort. And in doing so, you've chosen to grow. And that choice doesn't only matter for you or me, it also matters for this city, and it also matters for this world. Let's face it, this world is facing immense challenges, xenophobia and hate, authoritarians gaining ground across the globe and here as well, deep political polarization, anti-Semitism rearing its head, hostages still held in Gaza, deep divisions over Israel and her future. These are not easy issues to look at, but let's face it. If we're only going to be a place of comfort, only a place where we come to escape or hide, then we miss the very reason we exist. If there is one thing that Judaism has never promised, it's comfort. You see, ours is a tradition that first and foremost invites us into a partnership with God in creation. And that work always involves disruption. So yes, CBI should always be a place of warmth and belonging, but it must be more than that. It must also be a place where we lean into discomfort together. And so back to that night, the last Friday in June, last year. That's why I cried so hard. Because the people that I sat looking at were people that I shared discomfort with. That's what discomfort creates. Not just growth, not just strength, but relationship, connection, belonging. So here is my invitation. I don't want to only preach about discomfort. On this Rosh Hashanah, as I myself feel profoundly uncomfortable, let me ask you, will you be uncomfortable with me? Yes. Well then, let us begin together to choose the friction that births something new for our children, for our congregation, for our city, and yes, for our world. Rosh Hashanah reminds us the world itself was born in chaos, and that world, this congregation and beyond, can be born anew through us again today. As Quentin Tarantino once wrote, let's get to work. Shana Tova.